I used to think that being part of a group, being associated and practicing the way of life of my people would make me lose out on my individuality. That if I got too deep into where I'm from, I'd somehow lose the pathway to being who I am. But lately, I've started to see that differently. Knowing where you come from and acknowledging it is not a limitation. It doesn't trap you, and neither should it drown you. It gives you something to stand on. It's not about repeating what's been done before. It's not about not holding space for your own ideas or your own ideals. It's about understanding where you come from, the story that brought you here, so you can move through your life and create your own life with intention. Culture is a funny thing. It lives in our food, our languages, our jokes, our names, the songs our parents used to play on road trips to the village. But it also lives inside the things we fight against, the expectations, the micromanaging, the parts of it that we want to change. I've realized that understanding your heritage isn't about turning backwards or living in the past. It's about standing on something. It gives you a foundation to move forward from. So today, on this episode, I want to talk about that, about culture, about heritage, and how reconnecting with it doesn't have to shrink you, how it can actually help you be more yourself. Sometimes to know where you're going, you have to look at where you started. And if you think of all the people in your lineage that came before you, your ancestors, your elders, and reflect on how a culmination of their choices and pairings have brought you here, how it has somehow given life to you, you find not just your people, but yourself. As usual, I'm Frida, and welcome back to another episode of the Frida Says Word podcast. How have you all been doing? What have you guys been up to? I hope you guys have enjoyed the holidays. I'm not exactly sure when this one is coming out, but happy New Year's, guys. It's been a minute since I've had you all to myself on an episode. Giving you back to back guests. I'm sorry, I know you guys miss me. As I've said, today we're going to be talking about culture, and I think it is actually very befitting that I'm doing this episode in my ancestral home, our family house in Osuka. This is where my father grew up. I mean, not necessarily in this house, but yeah, this is the compound where my father grew up. This is where his father grew up. This is where my great grandfather lived as well. So I'm making this episode at home, and it feels like such a beautiful thing for me. The conversation of culture, I think, like my own culture specifically for me, came up, let's say, 2 years ago, actually. I was thinking maybe it's last year, but I just remember that I think the first time I ever identified or tried to like connect with my culture was after I read Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And just like witnessing Igbo culture, because I'm Igbo, for those of you who do not know, um, just witnessing the culture, seeing how it really changed when like the Western world came to their lands, and just like appreciating their way of life. It made me feel like, okay, this is something I should look into. This is something I should try to connect myself with, because it was a very simple way of life, low key, from what I understood. But then again, like 6 months ago, because it just awakened something in me. Let me not say it not puts me on any specific path. Like reading the book just awakened like a desire to know more about my culture. But like 6 months ago, I think I was having a conversation with my dad and my brother and I think we were just telling us about like the way of life of our people back in the day, how different it was and is from the Western way of life. He was saying to us that in those days, our people prioritized happiness and not just like, just everyone should be happy. I mean, somehow like that, but in the sense of like emotional well being. Like, um, are you doing okay? How do you feel? Are you doing all right? So long as like you're up, you can go to your farm, you come back, you sit down with your guys, chill out, like everyone, so long as like you are happy in your day to day, like your life is okay, your life is full, like you are living a good life. As opposed to I know, these days people are more concerned with like their mortality. Everybody wants to live very long, and everybody wants to push the boundaries of existence. Whereas like then, you just, it doesn't really matter how short your life was, just so long as like you live that life well. As my dad was telling us that story, I felt a kinship with my people. Um, and of course, like thinking that way has its own limitations. Like, of course, the reason why the Western world is so robust, like why it has become like a machine on its own, is because of how they prioritize like more than the present day, like thinking about the future and stuff like that. There are obviously limitations to that way of life. But then at the same time, my whole life I've just been trying to like chase fullness, like chase that happiness of like living well and living happy. And it just was just interesting to me to know that like it was a way of my people. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe like culture is something that's is more, it's not just like passed down, it is also inside you, is in your DNA as well. Cause I felt like, oh hey, like this is in me somehow. This is in me. This is not a way of life that was taught to me per se, but this is something I have been seeking. And so that really like propelled me towards like figuring out like what is my culture, what are we about, like what am I carrying and what do I want to continue to pass on. And what is culture, what is heritage? In an article published under Frontiers for Young Minds, they define culture as shared beliefs, values, traditions, social norms, and behaviors of a group of people who share the same living environment in a specific region of the world. They further detailed that culture encompasses key aspects of a society, including language, education, religion, governments, and the identity and personality of the people who are part of that culture. I feel like that definition is somewhat self-explanatory. Culture, in a simple way, to be defined in a simple way, is just like the way of life of the people, how they live, how they live, what they eat, how they what they do, their values, just stuff like that. Like that's fundamentally what culture is. And heritage, the word itself is defined as a property, something that is inherited and passed down from previous generations. In the context of cultural heritage, it implies a shared bond of belonging to a community. It represents our history and our identity, our bond to the past, to our present, and the future. Um, I got this definition from a writer, Elena Frank. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And as usual, I'll drop the links to all the materials that I sourced for this particular episode. I read a lot. I actually consumed a lot for this episode. So I will share all my resources. There are two types of cultural heritage. There's tangible and intangible. Tangible in the sense that things you can see, things you can feel, hold, artifacts, monuments, um, painting, like that's paintings, just like physical representations of culture. And intangible in the sense of like stories, language, festivals, performing arts, social practices, rituals, knowledge, and then skills passed down from generation to generation. Yeah, most of that is like word of mouth, and most of that is also implied in a way of life. And in different cultures, there's preference for which type of heritage is like w- where like more emphasis is placed. Like in Western cultures, it's obviously very obvious that is they place more emphasis on tangible cultural heritage. And you see their buildings, like they take like they had so much physical stuff, and like all they do is kind of like to preserve their museums, their buildings, their arts. Um, as opposed to Eastern and African cultures who like prioritize intangible cultural heritage. We're more focused on the way of life, like way things are done, um, telling stories, yeah, passing down the language and all of that stuff. Like we're definitely very similar Africans to Eastern culture as well. In an ideal world, I would say that a combination of the two would be um would be the ideal. Like yeah, like if you can combine tangible and intangible, it will kind of like cement culture of a people. Because when I think of how in Nigeria we don't really have like a written history, we don't really have like things that we can see that can fill us with like can embody the culture for us, right? So it's just all we have is like word of mouth. Things can be misplaced through word of mouth. Like if you just keep passing things like that, like people will change the story and stuff like that. So I think if we'd had more physical physical manifestations of our culture, it would have helped to preserve it better. And in the same breath, like as well in Western culture, I feel like they could do with a little bit more tradition, like like not just about the physical. So yeah, in an ideal world, I think like a combination of two. I also would like agree that like it's not like as if we could hold on to a lot of our physical stuff like our buildings. Like if you say you wanted us to preserve our buildings, like nobody wants to fucking live in a mud house, like not in 21st century. So fair enough, we had to like take that out and optimize for better, build better houses, like build more modern houses. You can actually even tell it has actually even become a thing to tear down. Every couple of years, you notice that we don't really have any. We just keep going with with the trend on like houses. Like everybody just wants like new houses, new houses, new houses. It's definitely like a Nigerian thing. You can even say it's like Nigerian culture at this point. But yeah, that is definitions of culture and heritage, and then the different types of heritage as well. When I started to think about culture, um, I started asking. I think like the major tension for me was whether like being part of like was whether or not like identify with that culture would somehow erase me, like erase my individuality, erase who I am as a person. Like if I wanted to identify and live by these cultural practices, like I would be saying goodbye to a lot of the things that I believed in and care about. I mean, for like the most coherent part of my adult life, I remember vividly from secondary school, even I definitely placed a wall between myself and culture. I was never intentionally taught my language, which I think definitely added to the tension and the disconnect. Um, and personally, like Igbo culture is very male centered, unfortunately. And if I'm saying like from secondary school, I went to an all girls secondary school, so there was like lots and lots of female empowerment there. Like women were in all the major roles, and coming from a male centered culture, coming from a male centered family as well, it was kind of hard to really want to accept or identify with a culture that kind of like diminished like female representation. So, and also like aside from that as well, I realized that there wasn't really much of a culture like that was being passed on or was being taught to me. They'll say if they say you're Igbo, I don't know for other tribes. I hope like whatever tribe you are as you're listening, you're thinking about this for yourselves as well. For other like I would always ask myself, what culture? Like all you'd hear is like, oh, Igbo people like money, Igbo people are greedy, um highest they say Igbo people don't beg. I'm like, okay, well, like is that a culture? Like is that something like what exactly does that okay, and then what? I always felt like there was actually no culture to pass on. And at the time as well, I had just taken up writing and I really loved the English language, and I was like, this is what I identify with. Like this is how I can express myself. This is how I can live my life with this language. So what do I need this language, this other language for? What do I need this culture for? It is giving me nothing. And I think that that failing lies with our parents and with like their own like failure, or just maybe also like there was just a gap in um that culture as well being translated to them. Um, then when I got older, and then recently when I started to research Igbo culture, I realized that like the Igbo culture in itself was kind of like erased and replaced by Christianity. Um, Doing research, I mean, I realized that like the Igbo people. I hope I'm not making this an Igbo, an Igbo episode, but I think like if I'm going to talk about culture, I would use myself as a point of contact. I realized that um, the reason why we had no culture per se, like no rituals or practices to be passed on, was because when Christianity came, because the Igbo people were a very religious people, because our way of life, like our culture is our religion, like an Igbo man is a religious man. The Igbo man's culture is his religion, like that is what it is. So when they replaced the worship and the belief system and the religion with Christianity, it kind of like wiped the slate clean for Igbo culture. So the reason why I realized that the reason why there was nothing necessarily tangible, and when I say tangible, like I'm saying tangible, I'm talking about intangible, tangible, intangibility. I don't know, but like the reason why there was nothing to pass on was because there was no like they had eradicated that. They had told them this is bad for you, this isn't a good thing, for you, whatever. I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. So like it's funny because when I now realized that, I kind of, I kind of, it helped me practice my own religion better. Because when I now started to see lines and similarities, to see how, why it was kind of easier for the Igbo people, especially. I think like in Nigeria, majority of the Christians are Igbo. Why it was so easy for the Igbo people to take up Christianity, especially Catholicism, was because it just replaced our way of worship. There were so many similarities. The Catholic Church is very ritualistic in its practice. The belief in like the dichotomy of the three gods, the dichotomy of the three gods of the three in one God. I mean, just made it easier for me to like to feel like I was living my culture by practicing my current um religion. And then I had conversations with my dad. I remember bringing up this topic with him because he's a second generation Christian. And I was wondering how like having a great grandfather, or my great grandfather was a very serious traditional worshiper, how he was able to have a son who was a very devout like Catholic Christian. And I was like, that just means that like to me there's an essence in like the root of religion culture. When I say religion and culture, I want to say in this episode, or for Igbo culture specifically, and for me, because it is how I understand my people. So I was like, there has to be an essence for someone who was a traditional worshiper to kind of give his son an allowance to change his religion, and just like and then for his son to then accept the religion so fully, it means that like there was something in it that was able to have been transmitted, and it has been transmitted to my dad, and it is being transmitted to me. Like that is a core, that is sort of kind of like the heritage as well. So I was like, okay. When I saw this, and like when it like made me more settled into my practice of my Catholic religion, I then started to like look for it everywhere. I started to see um I started to feel kind of like grounded. I don't know how else to describe it. I started to feel more centered in the more that I started to chase the knowledge of my people, the history of my people, trying to understand who we are, what we're about, like what is our nature, how do we live our lives. I now started to have more grounding as a person. And it didn't really change any views of myself, in the sense that like obviously there are still parts of my life that um my culture does not account for, But then I was like, I was like, okay, why not just like find a way to inculcate this? Why not just like find a way to wrap this up as well? And like, culture grows and improves. It doesn't have to be stagnant. Like, why do we always see culture and tradition as such a stagnant thing? Why can't it be something that's like evolves and modifies with that core center? If like my grandfather could become a Christian and still sort of kind of carry the core of his previous religion in him and then pass it on, like then like if the core is intact, then it doesn't matter what shape and form is like growing into, so long as like it can be propelled forward. So I was just like, okay, yeah, it made me more it felt like I had my 2 feet on the ground, being here in my village and being surrounded by my people. And when I say I don't even just mean my family, I just mean being surrounded by people like me and just like people who speak the same language as my parents. Unfortunately, I still struggle to speak my own language, but like it's just like it's a very grounding, it's a very grounding feeling. Maybe it's because like I've taken a different initiative to coming back home, being surrounded by family, being surrounded by the legacy of your people. Yeah, you're just like, oh, okay, like I don't have it gives you a sense of belonging, like a sense of this is my home, this is where I come from. And I think I've talked about some previous episodes how parental validation can be very strengthening to a person and to your identity as a person. I think cultural validation as well is very strengthening to a person. Like if you're proud of where you're from, if you know where you're from as well, you know your people, what your people are about, and not just like their good sides, you understand their bad sides and their good sides, their limitations, and like the things that they can build upon. Like you kind of get a sense of yourself and a sense of what you want to do as well. It gives you like an idea to project forward or a place to project forward from. Really encourage everyone to take a deep dive into their history and their culture, because I think it helps to build a self concept and an identity, and I think it also gives you a direction to go from. Um, Acknowledging my roots, acknowledging where I come from, has been such has been such a powerful experience for me. I never really thought there would come a time in my life where I would be I would be hustling, literally hustling to learn how to speak my language, to use it in my writing, to kind of like to push my heritage forward, like to make it like something loud about myself. And in doing so, it doesn't feel like I am diminishing myself at all. It feels like I am stamping myself somewhere. It's like, yeah, this is me. This is my, it has really helped with my identity. Like, it has definitely helped with my identity formation. And research actually proves that um, being in touch or being conversant with your culture actually helps your self concept and your sense of belonging, improves your sense of belonging and identity. So it's like, okay, it's just like there was a conversation I had one time, and then like this is not it's not the context for this, but there's something like I picked up from that conversation that we can use. It's like there have been so many people before you, like in your culture, in your tribe, in where you come from. There have been so many people before you. There are so many resources ahead of you. Like there are so many people who have like done so much for your community and like made waves for you to be able to be here and like to live here. And when you quantify that and when you think of that, like you are part of this, when you were giving birth to, you came as well into that community, and like these people have made a pathway for you. You feel empowered by that, and you feel like you can actually like do so much more standing on that, standing on what they've done. When I take it home and I think about my family and I think of like all they've done just to like just to lay a path for me, a path to move forward. This entire season, my dad has spoken to all of us, and then I say all of us, I don't mean my siblings, like the entire family extended, about how like we need to be the ones to push this dynasty forward, be the ones to push this heritage forward, be the ones to improve on this legacy. It is a humbling thing, and it is also like an exciting thing as well. And like it just empowers me so much because the people before me have given me a blueprint on how to be and how to excel and how to be better. And they don't have the knowledge that I have now. They don't have the resources that I am able to, that are at my fingertips now. So I can do more and I can do better than them even. And like, honor that legacy, cherish that legacy, take it forward, integrate it into my life. The way I practice my religion is it's so different. It's so funny because it's so funny because I take an Igbo. I'll actually be like, sometimes I'll joke with my siblings. I said I'm an Igbo traditionalist now. Like I'm just using the Catholic practice as a medium to actually be in touch with with my with my my people, with my ancestors. Like I am actually the Catholic practice is just a medium for me to be in touch with my religion. Every time I say a prayer, I connect it with like Igbo spirituality. I connect it with the Igbo sense of being. I am just like kind of like using it to touch, just to touch grass with my culture. And it's an empowering thing for me, and it makes me feel, it helps me, it makes me feel good. I think it makes me feel settled in my in practice of both religions, like basically. So I encourage everyone to find to f- to like dig into their culture, to find their roots. I encourage everyone um to explore, to integrate their culture into their lives, to wear their culture proudly. I think it is it will also reduce the ruthlessness that people have. When I say people have no roots, people feel like um that they don't belong anywhere. People are finding anchor. People are trying to find anchors. People are trying to know who they are. I think like being in touch with your culture would like kind of like reduce that feeling in a lot of people. So that is what I urge and I hope for everyone here. Um in this episode, I just want you guys to think about what you want to know about your culture, so that like I don't know, think of questions that you want to ask. Google stuff, find out about your people, find out about how your people got to where they are now, and maybe like feel a sense of wanting to improve on your culture as well. On if Frida says what section today, all I really want to leave you guys with is just like a thirst to know and grasp and like literally touch grass with your roots and where you come from. Um hold on to your heritage. Let us all try to document our history. um Apparently the average Englishman writes like writes like fucking journals and shit and just like documents the happenings of his world. And I think written culture and written history is important. Let us like all try to have pens and journals, and let us all try to like write down our history and what we know for our children, for the next generations to come. Let us learn about our culture so that we do not have children who have no foundation, who do not know where they come from. I think it was a disservice to us that we do not, a lot of us don't know how to speak our languages, a lot of us don't know how to like communicate with our elders, a lot of us don't know how to just like express ourselves in our native tongue. I think it's a disservice. I think like we should live better and give better to like the next generation for real, so that like we don't get lost, they don't get lost as well. So this is what I leave you guys with. I really want to hear about your culture. I hope this episode has inspired you to go and do a deep dive. Please, I need to know about like other people's culture. Can we see where we are similar? Can we see where we differ? Can we have like points of like points of points where we merge, let's all find a universal culture that we can all agree on. And I'm talking specifically for this Nigerian audience because we have so multicultural. We have like so many tribes, so many cultures. Part of what is wrong with our country is that like nobody has a there's no one like nobody can feel a sense of like kinship with someone from another tribe. Meanwhile, I'm sure like we all live around each other. We're all like kind of close to each other. I'm sure we all have like similar practices and stuff. So it would be interesting to kind of like see that come out. So this is what I leave you all with. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope I hope you found it interesting. It's something I've been really passionate about. I've just been procrastinating this episode because of the magnitude of how I feel and how much like culture is now important to me. But I hope I was able to transmit that to you as well. So hope you guys have a good one. Please rate our podcast. Please share this podcast with anyone you think would benefit from listening to this episode. Um, like, subscribe, follow us everywhere. And yeah, until the next one. Catch you guys later. Bye.